The first death of winter was never the cold. It was the draft that stole heat before a man could even shiver.
Still chinking every pinhole. John, you'll be at it till the spring thaw.
John didn't look up. His putty knife pressed moss deeper into the seam with practiced force.
The rest of us are stacking firewood. You are carving a sculpture out of mud and weeds.
It ain't the cold that kills a man. It's the moving air.
Superstition. Cold is cold. You can't stop it with a little green moss.
John had learned the difference one winter when a drafty barn killed half his herd in a single night.
Never again. Every seam sealed.
Suit yourself. But when that blizzard hits, you'll wish you'd spent your time chopping wood.
John kept working, packing moss into every crack as if the life inside depended on it. Because it did. By mid-afternoon, the mockery had become a spectator sport. 3 more neighbors stopped to join Mark's chorus.
Look at him, boys. Thinks he's caulking a schooner for the high seas.
John's knife paused halfway into a seam. For a moment, he was back in the drafty barn, 10 winters younger.
The walls had seemed tight then, too. But by dawn, the cattle lay stiff, their lungs filled by the moving air.
He had found them with ice in their nostrils, frozen because the drafts had stolen every degree of warmth.
Never again.
He lit a tallow candle and traced every log joint inside the cabin, watching for the telltale flicker. In several places, the flame leaned as if whispering secrets. He plugged those cracks until the light stood upright.
Might have to name you the Moss Prophet, John.
John didn't answer. He was watching the sky. The first heavy clouds, gray as gunmetal, were rolling over the ridge. The first flake landed on his glove, a cold, weightless star that dissolved into the leather and sealed his resolve.
No more time. Finish it now.
He mixed pine pitch into the moss with his bare fingers, working it until the green fibers glistened like wet honey and clung to the knife blade.
Still at it, John. The blizzard will find you frozen with a putty knife in your hand.
John didn't acknowledge him. The last seam swallowed his knife blade, and he smoothed the pitch until the crack vanished into the wood grain. Inside, he struck flint to tinder, blew the spark into a flame, and watched it climb the kindling as if eager to prove his labor.
Silence. No whistle, no shiver in the air.
He held a tallow candle to each sealed joint. The flame stood upright as a soldier at attention. Outside, the snow thickened, but the only sign of the cabin was the golden glow seeping through the moss-packed cracks. The blizzard would come, but the moving air would find no path inside. By midnight, the wind had sharpened to a scream, rattling the shutters like a warning that the real winter had finally arrived. John pressed his palm to each sealed seam. No cold, no whisper of moving air, only the solid, packed tightness of moss and pitch. He sat by the fire, listening to the howl, knowing the walls would hold because he had made sure of it.
Just a little blow. These old logs have seen worse.
Outside, the world vanished in a rage of white, swallowing trees and fence posts whole.
Not a single draft. Every seam is stone.
Across the clearing, frost bloomed on Mark's windowpane, etching patterns that would soon fog with his breath.
Firewood's all a man needs. Moss is for squirrels.
John fed another log to the flames, and the cabin held its warmth like a clenched fist against the cold. The storm was just beginning, but already the 2 cabins were worlds apart. One held still air. The other would soon become a wind tunnel. Inside John's cabin, the fire held steady as a heartbeat. No draft stirred the flames. He opened a leather-bound book, the pages warm under his fingers, and read by the light of the steady fire. 50 yards away, Mark's fire was losing the fight. The flames bent sideways, starved of air, then clawed back weakly.
Air's got a bite to it. Nothing another log won't fix.
A thin blade of wind found a crack above the window and whistled through, carrying a shiver of snow dust. Mark tossed a heavy log onto the flames, but the heat seemed to vanish into the walls as if the cabin were breathing it out. A candle on the mantel guttered and died, its flame snatched by a draft no wider than 2 fingers.
What's wrong with this wood? Burns like wet paper.
In John's cabin, the air was so still he could have balanced a feather on its edge. The fire barely flickered, but Mark only fed the fire again, blaming the fuel and not the gaps that were sucking his life away. Mark tore a strip from a grain sack and jammed it into the widest crack above the mantel. The wind ripped it back out like a spitball, and a funnel of snow shot across the floor. Frost whitened his beard, and his breath hung in the air like smoke from a dying chimney.
Maybe that fussy fool had a point about the drafts. Should have stuffed moss in my own walls instead of laughing at him.
In John's cabin, the candle flame stood upright as a soldier. No draft could bend it.
Every seam sealed, just like the barn should have been.
He allowed himself a rare, grim smile. The storm outside was only a sound to him, 50 yards away. Mark's teeth chattered a rhythm he no longer tried to stop. John could not hear the chattering over the wind, and Mark was too stubborn to cry out. The wind screamed, but underneath it, a faint, raw sound reached him, like a man crying out through chattering teeth.
Was that real? Or is the storm twisting noises into something human?
He pressed his temple to the icy glass, straining to catch the sound again. Mark's cabin was close enough to hit with a stone, but the whiteout had swallowed it whole.
Those walls of his are sieves. The drafts will cut him down like the cattle.
The memory surfaced. Stiff legs, ice in nostrils, a barn that couldn't hold still air.
I could sit here until morning. No one would blame me.
But in his chest, a cold stone formed. The weight of a death he could have stopped.
He laughed at me. But did that matter now?
Outside, the blizzard erased the path between the cabins. To step out was to risk everything.
I will not let another living thing freeze because of open seams.
He turned from the window and stared at the bucket of moss and pitch, his ammunition against the draft.
Those cracks are exactly the enemy I know how to fight. Mark doesn't need wood. He needs still air.
The decision came before his mind could weigh the risk.
He mocked me, but that won't matter if he's dead in the morning.
He pulled on his heaviest coat, the wool collar already stiff with frost from the night before. The bucket felt heavier now, not with materials, but with the weight of his choice.
If I don't go, I'll find his frozen body in the spring and never sleep again.
Behind him, the fire hummed a quiet goodbye, a promise of warmth he was leaving. He laid his palm on the icy door latch and listened. One last time for the cry. The latch clicked, and the blizzard tore the door from his hand, exploding inward with a scream of jagged ice.
Push through. Every step counts double tonight.
He staggered out, and the door slammed shut behind him, sealing away the fire's glow like a forgotten promise. The wind tried to knife through his wool, but he bent into it, one arm shielding the precious bucket.
50 yards never felt like a death sentence before.
Snow packed his beard and lashed his eyes. He navigated by memory, each step a gamble that the ground was still there.
There, a yellow smear of light. Mark's window, still alive.
But the light seemed to drift in the whiteout. A ghost he couldn't trust, teasing him farther into the void.
Keep going. The light is real. It has to be.
Through the blinding swirl, the dark shape of Mark's cabin resolved, but the door was still a frozen fight away, buried in a drift that reached his waist. John hammered the ice-crusted door with numb fists, the sound swallowed by the blizzard's roar.
Mark, open up, or I'll smash this door to splinters.
No answer came. He fumbled for his putty knife, the cold metal stinging even through his gloves. and began chipping at the ice sealing the frame.
Faster. He's running out of time, and I am the only one who knows it.
The knife blade bit deep, spitting shards of frozen water across his chest as he carved a line along the door's edge.
Is someone there? I can't get the door.
It's me, Mark. Stand back. I am breaking through.
With a final, cracking heave, the ice seal snapped and the door flew open. A wall of white wrath slamming into the cabin.
John, I thought you'd stay warm and write me off.
John didn't answer. He shoved the door shut against the drift, and the darkness swallowed them both. But the draft still had its teeth in the room. In the dim light, Mark's lips were blue and the blankets on his shoulders crackled with ice.
He's closer to death than I thought. The drafts have been drinking his heat all night.
John's eyes swept the walls. Every seam showed a white thread of frost, dozens of tiny airways draining the warmth.
Get on your feet, Mark. You are going to help me stuff every last one of these cracks.
Can't. My fingers are stone. They won't close around anything.
John pressed a fistful of moss into Mark's frozen hands, forcing them shut around the green wad.
Shove it into the crack. The pitch will hold what your fingers can't.
With the putty knife, John slapped a strip of sticky pitch over the moss and smoothed it flat.
Just keep moving. One crack at a time. Don't let the cold win.
The whine of the blizzard softened, but the searching drafts still keened like hungry dogs at the unplugged seams.
Moss first. Pack it in tight so the draft can't snake through. Then the pitch seals it like skin over a wound.
Mark watched John's knife lay a perfect bead of pitch, the amber strip glistening for a moment before blending into the wood.
Now hold the back of your hand to the seam. If you feel any whisper of cold, it's not done.
There, a needle of ice right at my wrist. The beast is still breathing on me.
He forced another wad of moss into the tiny fissure, his frozen fingers clumsy but obedient to a will that had finally understood the cost of neglect. John fed the fire, and the flames stretched higher, no longer bent horizontal by the drafts. Heat crept back into the room.
It's holding. The warmth is actually staying in the room.
Don't celebrate yet. We've got half the walls left. Every crack sealed. That was the bargain I made with this storm.
They worked in a rhythm now. Moss and pitch, until the shriek of the blizzard dwindled to a low moan. But as John ran his hand along the base of the back wall, his fingers found a razor-thin jet of air, cold as a blade. The draft slithered from behind a stack of firewood, cunningly hidden by a careless pile.
Mark, help me shift this wood. There's a crack feeding the cold straight into your floor.
Together, they heaved the logs aside, revealing a narrow seam that whistled like a hungry wolf. John pressed his palm close and felt the air bite deep, a frozen needle searching for flesh.
That tiny slit is enough to kill a fire? I didn't believe it before.
He tore the last fistful of moss from the bucket, cramming every fiber into the crevice. The pitch spread thick and golden, sealing the gap like a scar that would hold forever. Outside, the blizzard screamed as if cheated, its last path into the cabin snuffed out. John swept his hand along every seam. No cold, no movement. The enemy was gone. The cabin stood sealed, every crack packed. The blizzard was now just a hollow sound outside. The silence that followed was deeper than any John had known. No whistle, no creak, just the fire's gentle crackle.
Stillness. The storm can't touch us now. We built a pocket of air it can't reach.
They slumped against the warm logs, side by side, their breath slow and even, like men who had climbed out of a grave. The heat of the fire crept into their bones, and the frost on Mark's beard began to weep, each drop a silent surrender.
I mocked him for this warmth, and he dragged it through a blizzard to me.
Color bloomed back into Mark's cheeks, pushing the deathly pallor away, and he turned his head to meet John's gaze.
He's going to say it. I don't need to hear it, but he needs to say it.
John,
The rest of the sentence hung in the air, heavier than any blizzard, a debt still waiting to be named. John simply nodded, understanding that some apologies take time to thaw. The fire crackled on, the silence stretched. But finally, Mark's voice broke through, rough and raw as a confession.
I called you a fussy fool for plugging cracks with moss. Thought you were wasting time. But now I know it wasn't the cold that nearly killed me. It was the drafts. Every last one sucked the life from this room.
John listened without interruption, the weight of his early labor finally acknowledged.
You tried to tell me. I laughed. If you hadn't come, I'd be a frozen corpse by morning.
Every crack sealed. That was the whole war. The cold can't win if the wind can't get through.
Mark nodded, the gesture heavy with the understanding that saves lives in mountain country.
I'll never mock the moss again. That fussy work you did. It's the only reason I am still breathing.
One more man who knows the secret. Maybe the next blizzard will find fewer graves.
The fire burned on, feeding on wood that was no longer fighting a losing battle against the wind. John pulled a small oiled parcel from his coat and offered Mark a strip of dried venison.
You brought food? Through that white hell. I owe you more than I can count. But tell me, how did you learn to fight drafts like that? Most men never give it a thought.
A dead barn taught me. 10 winters ago, I lost half my cattle in one night. The walls looked tight, but the wind found every pinhole. By dawn, the beasts were frozen stiff, ice in their nostrils. An old foreman later showed me the truth. Cold doesn't kill, moving air does. Seal every crack, and the cold can't reach you.
Mark stared at the moss-stuffed seams around him, a new weight settling in his chest.
So this ain't just a trick. It's the difference between life and frozen death.
He finally sees it. The barn didn't die in vain.
Outside, the blizzard still clawed at the walls, but inside, the knowledge had passed from one man to another, a shield stronger than timber.
When morning comes, we have to tell the others. No one else should freeze for want of a little moss and pitch.
John didn't need to say yes. They both knew the debt the settlement owed to a bucket of moss. Exhaustion pulled at their limbs like an anchor, and they spread their blankets on the floor near the hearth.
This peace was bought with frozen fingers and a dead barn's lesson. It was worth every seam.
The blizzard battered the roof, but the logs stood silent, their cracks filled with the green silence of the forest. Snow sealed the window from outside, but inside, the fire burned on, unchallenged. Mark's face was peaceful now. The frost melted, color fully returned. He slept like a man resurrected. John pulled his coat tighter and let his eyes close. The storm was just noise now. Outside, the storm raged on, but the moss held firm in every seam, a fortress of green patience. Every crack sealed. The blizzard crashed against a wall of moss and pitch and found no way in. Dawn came silent and gold, the blizzard having spent its fury in the night. John pushed open the door against a wall of drifted snow. The world was a blinding white. Mark followed, wrapping his coat tighter, his eyes tracing the sealed seams of his own cabin.
Look at them. Every crack still plugged. I can't feel any draft.
That's the proof. The drafts never had a chance.
The moss-stuffed seams were dark with melted frost, droplets glistening in the morning sun like tiny medals of survival. Smoke rose from both chimneys, thin and straight, the sign of fires burning in still air.
I owe you more than my life. John, I owe you my understanding of how a house fights winter.
John's cabin stood in the distance, every seam visible, a testament to a simple truth, every crack sealed. The blizzard had found no way in. And now, under the bright sun, the whole settlement could learn why. Neighbors emerged from their cabins, some shivering, others brushing frost from their sleeves with grim smiles. They gathered between the two cabins, snow halfway up their boots, comparing stories of the night.
Listen to me, all of you. It wasn't the cold that nearly killed me. It was the drafts. I laughed at John for stuffing cracks with moss. I was the fool.
John stood back, letting Mark's testimony carry the weight his own words never could.
Every crack in your walls is a thief. It steals heat faster than you can burn wood. Seal them now, while there's light, or the next blizzard will find your bones.
A few neighbors touched the moss-stuffed seams on Mark's cabin, feeling for themselves the strange, still air.
The moss and pitch are in the woods. The knowledge is free. Don't let pride freeze you to death.
The settlement began to listen, the lesson of the blizzard spreading like a quiet flame. Later that morning, John knelt beside a neighbor's drafty wall. A small crowd clustered around him like students before a master.
Pack it deep, then seal with pitch. The draft is a snake looking for any gap.
A boy of about 7 squeezed a fistful of moss, his small fingers pressing with a determination born from stories of frozen nights.
Looks like you've got a new apprentice, John. Moss prophet, and now moss teacher.
Let them learn. The secret will live longer than any of us.
One by one, they took turns pressing moss and smoothing pitch, their hands learning the craft that turns a shelter into a fortress.
Now, hold the back of your hand to the seam. Any whisper of cold means it's not sealed.
The boy pressed his little palm against a freshly packed seam and held his breath. No draft touched his skin.
This moss is as precious as gold now. We'll all be chinking before the next storm.
The knowledge passed from John's hands to the community, a quiet inheritance that would hold against every storm to come. Evening crept over the valley, and John walked the short path to his own cabin, the snow crunching under his boots. He paused at the door and traced a finger along a moss-filled seam, feeling not a breath of cold.
Still tight. Still. The storm didn't touch this.
He stepped inside, and the warmth wrapped around him like a familiar blanket. For the first time in what felt like years, he shed his coat without urgency. He built the fire high, the flames standing straight and true, no draft to bend them.
The barn is avenged. Mark is alive. The settlement knows. I can rest.
He sat by the fire, the cabin's silent save for the pop of burning wood, and for the first time in 10 winters, he let his eyes close without listening for the wind. Outside, the snow lay deep and calm under a star-scattered sky. The blizzard had truly passed. Dawn broke clear and silent, the sky a pale gold above the frozen mountain peaks. The log cabin sat half buried in drifts, but a thin wisp of smoke rose steady from its chimney. Every crack in the logs was still sealed with moss and pitch, dark lines of patience against the white. Frost glistened on the seams but could not pass through. Every gap had been sealed. No wind stirred the snow. No draft slipped through the walls. Inside, the fire still burned without a tremor, and John slept deeper than he had in years. The lessons of the blizzard had been carved into wood and moss, a quiet fortress against the wind. The storm had raged, but the moving air found no path inside, every crack sealed. The blizzard had found no way in.